right, so I have 6 o'clock. It's time to get started. Welcome everybody, and good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for the second part in our UW Extension Sheep Task Force mini-series on predation management. Tonight, we will be hearing from Kat Urbigkit and her experiences and advice using livestock guardian dogs to deter predators from sheep in western Wyoming. My name is Dagan Montgomery. I am a University of Wyoming Ag and Natural Resources Extension educator here in Sublette County and a member of the UWE Sheep Task Force. It's my privilege to introduce sheep producer and fellow Sublette County resident Kat Urbigkit. Kat is a western Wyoming rancher who uses livestock guardian dogs to protect her family's sheep and cattle from large carnivores, including wolves. She has traveled throughout Europe, Asia, and Africa to learn about guardian dogs' use with livestock in other cultures. Involved in journalism for more than 3 decades, Kat Urbigkit writes nonfiction books about the domestic and wild animals that share the same range in western Wyoming. So before we get started tonight, just a friendly reminder that tonight's webinar will be recorded and put on the UW Extension YouTube channel for future viewing. As you think of questions for Kat, you can just type those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get to everybody's questions after we hear a little bit from Kat and as those questions come up. So Kat, again, a big thanks from all of us for joining us here tonight. With that, I'll let you get started, and we're all really interested to hear you discuss a little bit about guardian dogs and your experience with them.
Great. Let me get this. Okay, everybody able to see that?
I believe so.
All right. So thanks everybody for coming on to the webinar tonight. It's pretty difficult to try to figure out how to really cover this without knowing kind of the status of our participants tonight. You know, are you considering using livestock guardian dogs? Do you already have livestock guardian dogs? Where you're at in the livestock guardian dog process. So, but please feel free to ask questions and stuff in the chat, and my UW folks will keep me updated on what we need to talk about. But we'll start with some just kind of very basics. The most important thing is to be aware of the warning signs of predators in your herd when you have animals tightly bunched together. You have cows with tight bags, presence of ravens and magpies. If your herd or flock is acting disturbed, if your sheep become panicked in the presence of herding dogs, even though they're used to living in the presence of herding dogs, if you're finding signs such as tracks or scat of various predators, if your animals suddenly refuse to enter certain areas or express a hesitancy to an area that they are usually accustomed to, if you have livestock breaking through otherwise sound pasture fences, if you do have an guardian animal, if that animal is missing or if it's present, if it exhibits an odd behavior, or if there's any drastic changes in your herd's general temperament. When predation is suspected, locate the kill and feeding sites to look for sign. Some predators may move their kills, bears, mountain lions do, or they'll carry away small lambs like fox, bobcats, and coyotes. Coyotes often scatter carcasses and remains, but bears and lions will bury them. If you have broken bones on your prey animal, that is a sign of a big predator. We also check trails, fence lines, water holes, dry washes for tracks, scat, and hair. And some of these large carnivore kills especially can be pretty confusing, or you'll have multiple species on one kill, feeding on one kill. So sometimes it's really, really important that you reach out and get help from an expert, and Wildlife Services is our go-to folks here, but we also use the Wyoming Game and Fish Department for some large carnivore kills. Benefits of livestock guardian dogs. They keep your pastures clean. I mean, when we're lambing, all of that birthing material that is put out there on on the landscape or calving. All of that birth matter is attractants for predators, and it's both you know, predators like coyotes, wolves, whatever, but avian predators as well. You know, that the the red material especially attracts large birds. And so guard dogs help to keep your pastures clean. They reduce depredation and they deter predators from your herds. They can decrease the potential of disease transmission between livestock and wildlife. We use our livestock guardian dogs here to keep wildlife out of our hay stack yards and off of our feed lines because we have an elk feed ground that's right next to us here. So this actually helps us to reduce the feed loss in our hay feeding operation as well. Livestock guardian dogs are also used as a conservation tool to protect imperiled species. It's pretty cool that guard dogs have been used. They were actually bonded with chickens to start with. And there's a little penguin species off the coast of Australia that was very endangered because they were being preyed on by foxes. And so they wildlife officials took two of these bonded guard dogs out to protect the little penguin colony, and that penguin colony has done really, really well in the presence of those livestock guard dogs. It's a great success story. And livestock guard dogs can also save human life. I had a guard dog knock me down to keep me from going into the willows where I had a bear and killing sheep. So excuse me. Potential guard dog problems. Guard dogs limit your other predator control options to a certain extent. You know, you can't do things like have traps, snares, poisons out, anything that could jeopardize your livestock guard dogs. We actually do some trapping and radio collaring with wildlife officials here for wolves here on the ranch, and we actually have to spool up our guard dogs when we are actively doing the trapping program for wolves. Of course, livestock guard dogs may roam, and there are various reasons for roaming. Sometimes a dog doesn't have enough to do. The predator, or you have more dogs than you have a predator challenge for, or it could be the opposite of that, that there is so much going on that that the dogs are in pursuit of predators, and that is why they are not there. Livestock guard dogs must be fed daily. They bark at night. That is in their job description. If you don't like the sound of a barking dog, don't get a livestock guardian dog. Guard dogs may harass wildlife, other dogs, or people. These are things that you can generally work around with training and correction of the dogs, but livestock guard dogs are also a long-term commitment, and there is a learning curve to getting the right livestock guard dog for your dogs for your operation. And but I really enjoy them, and the more years that I spend with them, I swear my respect for them goes up more and more. This is a livestock guard dogs go where they want. That was once my yard fence, my wooden yard fence. They're natural, they're not perfect, just like other livestock or other animals that we have on a ranch. They're a long-term commitment. You have to manage individual animals they're individuals, but they're also members of a pack. And they, these animals reproduce. They have heat cycles. Females attract males. There will be major battles between dogs for breeding rights. They have accidents. They get sick. They die. There's a learning curve to getting the right dogs, but I know a lot of people wonder about, how well herding dogs and guardian dogs get along. I know that people have had herding dogs without having guardian dogs are often very concerned about that. But herding dogs and guardian dogs have completely different behaviors and jobs, but they're easily used together. There's actually some pretty simple processes for getting the dogs to get to know each other that people have used around the world. So we use them every day together. So. But every outfit is unique. Your predator challenge will vary with the seasons, with your flock's behavior, and the size and characteristic of your pastures. All of these factors will influence how many guardian dogs you need and what sort of behavior you expect from those dogs. And just like other livestock, if you use guardian dogs, you'll need to have replacements for those dogs on occasion. You know, for a lot of us Western Wyoming sheep producers, we always say that in the summer and fall, we never have enough dogs because that is when our predator challenge is really, really high. The bears are out. We're in wolf country. We're mountain lions, everything else. But in the wintertime, when the sheep go back down onto the winter range on the desert, it seems like we always have too many dogs because really the only predator challenge they have in those situations is coyotes. So it can be substantially different. And it's not the same between you and your neighbor, and neighbors are a big deal and something to consider when you're looking at using livestock guardian dogs as well. Wanted to talk a little bit about matching the guard dog to the predator. We're so fortunate in Wyoming that we have hound hunting is still allowed in Wyoming. So these big cats tend to avoid areas where livestock guard dogs are present in areas where hound hunting is actually used. The area that we live in takes some lion hunters take out some pretty big lions from here every year, and those lions rarely cause us problems. And I really do attribute a lot of that to the kind of the harassment and the conditioning that they're getting from the hound hunters. Most livestock guard dog breeds work to deter cats. Great Pyrenees are the most docile livestock guard dog breed on the planet. They have very little human aggression, but I call them BWDs, big white dogs. But not all big white dogs are Great Pyrenees dogs, and it's kind of unfortunate. I think that a lot of the scientific journals that have been written or papers that have been written about livestock guard dogs say that these are Great Pyrenees dogs, whether they are or not. There's at least a half a dozen different big white guard dog breeds around the world. So they're not all Great Pyrenees. For coyotes, any guard dog is better than none when it comes to coyote depredation. With coyotes, I especially recommend a mixture of livestock guard dogs. And I'm talking about a mixture of ages, sexes, and breeds. Because I think for most producers that coyotes are the daily challenge. When it comes to domestic dogs as the predator, generally you need to have a more canine aggressive livestock guard dog breed because, most breeds, I think, most of the more gentle or milder breeds are not going to really want to kill another domestic dog. They will tend to try to befriend them or something, so I think that a more canine aggressive breed is appropriate in that kind of situation. However, there is a concern. You don't want to have fights with your neighbors over livestock guard dogs and their dogs. So when it comes to avian predators like eagles and ravens, I don't know why, but it seems like there are some breeds that just seem to understand that large birds can be a threat to their herd. Akbash is a BWD, big white dog from Turkey. They seem to be especially attentive to aerial threats, and they will actually harass eagles and ravens. But this seems to be more of a individual dog behavior, especially than a breed behavior. bears, both blacks and grizzly bears, many breeds are effective against both of these species of bears. Great Pyrenees, the Toman family had some Great Pyrenees dogs in that they used in the upper green that were great at harassing grizzly bears. The same thing with Akbash dogs. They harass and haze the bears away, as as did other more aggressive breeds, and some actually will kill bears. And we've had some of our Central Asian dogs do that. Um, Wolves, the scientific records tell us that most livestock guard dogs that are killed by wolves are Great Pyrenees. And I don't know if that is actually true or not, or if it is true, if that is more of a reflection of there are more big white livestock guard dog breeds out there on the landscape in the western states than probably any other color of livestock guard dog. So um, one of the things that happened with us is that we thought that the Great Pyrenees were not aggressive enough, so we went to the Akbash dogs, and we absolutely love our Akbash dogs. But we found that they were very active and had the heart to defend and everything, but they were often killed by wolves. And that is why we went to some breeds with higher levels of canine aggression that will actually actively challenge wolves. But I think it's important to note that in doing that, we also these livestock guard dog breeds that have that higher level of canine aggression are also more difficult to manage as managers. So, and I also think that when you have wolves, it's important to be able to put spike collars on your guard dogs when you have wolves in your area. Excuse me. So wolves coming into herds must be met with an aggressive response. There has to be a negative consequence from the guard dogs. Wolves will then move on to unprotected herds. If there is not a negative consequence, the wolves return and the guard dogs become habituated to wolf presence, which sets the stage for wolf depredations. So that's why our philosophy is we use more canine aggressive breeds, and our goal is to outnumber and outweigh the wolves, which we generally try to do, but that can really change from year to year with whatever is going on with our local wolf pack, because seems like these wolf packs can produce a heck of a lot more pups than we can with our guard dogs. So how to get started. The prime bonding period for livestock guard dogs is from about 8 to 16 weeks of age. So during this time, pups should be kept with the livestock species they'll be expected to guard. The pups need some human socialization, but not too much. The pups need to bond to the livestock rather than the humans. And there are several strategies for bonding pups with cattle, but putting young calves like a week old into a pen with pups works great. And I'll show a few pictures here. One of the things that we like to do is we keep some of the belly wool and stuff from our sheep. And then whenever we have a litter of pups, we line the natal den with that wool. So before the pups, before their eyes are even open, they're laying in that warm, soft wool with the comfort of their mother, getting the smell of our sheep. So once they're, a few weeks go by and their eyes open, then they can come out and meet the sheep. And it's the same thing you can see at the bottom of this photo. Those are actually some 5-week-old pups that I've got in with some Corriente cows and some big black baldy steers. And so these pups had access that you can see there's kind of brown panels back behind the green panels. That's actually a kennel that the dogs were using, but those pups could come out and get underneath that feeder so the cows were eating the hay on the top and those pups were underneath. And that's is just such a great way to get cattle, these dogs bonded with cattle. And then, of course, once their eyes open, then they start exploring. And doing this, it really does establish a really good bond. We do it a couple of different ways. Sometimes with our sheep, we'll take pups and we'll put them in with our bum lamb. Sometimes we'll take some really nice older ewes or even ewes with lambs and put them in with the pups. So it, you don't have to do it any particular way. You just kind of go with what you have. But what we try to do, these bonding pens are really, really important. We try to put animals that we want the dogs to bond with, but we want those animals to be somewhat gentle with them and not beat them up or tear them up or anything, So they need to be kind of gentle. Again, doing this is just with some calves. And putting them in a bonding pen like this and raising them together. And then what we would do with these steers, we just bonded them to a few steers. And then anytime that we needed to have these guard dogs into a certain pasture or anything with cows, we would just go throw those 2 steers into a group of leased heifers or whatever with their guard dogs to be sure that those heifers would be protected as well. So it worked really well. And then bonding pens, they're also important. Livestock guard dogs often have a period when they're, I don't know, it's usually before they're 2 years old. It's like the terrible teenager time where they'll start acting like juvenile delinquents. And if they've been out with the livestock and everything, or if they start deciding that they want to play rough or run or try to chase animals or something, well, then we will put them back into the bonding pen with some adult members of the species that they're guarding. In this case, I've got these pups in with some bucks, and that just leave them in there for a couple of weeks to kind of reinforce the fact that they need to respect the animals, the species that they're guarding. And again, this is not a situation where the dogs are getting beat up or anything, but they're getting their the livestock help provide the lessons to the livestock guard dog pups. So training, we actually don't do a lot of actual training. I mean, the thing about these dogs is they've been bred and used for thousands of years around the world. But what we try to do is we try to get them socialized to some scenarios that we expect them to encounter later in life, especially when they're pups. We want them to understand that, that vehicles are dangerous. We want them to understand what tractors are for. We want them to understand riders on horseback, our teams that we use to feed hay. We try to ride motorcycles around them, try to have kids riding bicycles around them so that none of these things that when they encounter them later in life are going to be alarming to them. They'll know that, oh, well, I remember that was not any big deal. So we do try to pay attention to that kind of thing and to expose pups to those kinds of activities early in life. And I think that just sets them up for success later. We do handle and pet our dogs all of the time. We encourage our herders to pet the dogs as well, but we generally don't want anyone else doing that because there is a fine line between having dogs that you can easily catch and handle and dogs that are rescued by people when they don't need to be rescued, when they're seen out on a trail or on public lands. If they're easily catchable by other people, we have had quite a few. We've driven hundreds of miles after dogs that have been rescued that did not need rescued. So we're try to be careful about that. We do try to, as a major part of the training, every good thing that happens with the dogs needs to happen while they're with their livestock. So they need to be fed with their livestock. You can bring little kids over to have the kids go out and pet the puppies and everything, and they can do that as long as the pups are in with the sheep or the calves at the time. So all good things need to happen while they're with their livestock. We do a few general commands to the dogs. We want them to know their names, of course. We want them to know the word no. and we want them to know go to the sheep. So those are the major commands that we do. They also the dogs will come to my whistle or to the honking of my truck horn when we're out on the range, because they know that I'll feed them. So just kind of basic training stuff. Spike collars save livestock guard dogs' lives. These are photos from Montana. The dog on the left was wearing a spiked anti-wolf collar, and even though that dog is bloody, that most of that blood was actually from the wolf that tried to grab him by the neck. And the dog on the right-hand side was not wearing a spike collar, and it did not survive. So we use Central Asian Ovcharkas and Akbash, and you can, there's that image is, these are both yearling dogs in this photo. The all white dog is the Akbash, the tricolor is the Ovcharka. And while each breed has its own behavioral characteristics, there's a great variety within a single litter of these dogs. The thing about guard dogs is all these dogs are independent thinkers. They're bred to take action as they deem appropriate. This is just a few more photos of one of our Central Asians of Charkas. There's one wearing a spike collar. These are Spanish Mastiffs. This is another breed that I guess these were actually photographed while we were in Spain with them. These are not show Spanish Mastiffs. These are actual range Spanish Mastiffs. So I think it's really important when people are looking at breeds not to get too hung up on breeds, because really what you want, I think that we want good performance out of dogs, and it's the breed stuff shouldn't matter so much. And really when you look at Central Asia and Europe, where all of these livestock guard dogs have been used for a very, very long time, those were really more land races. These were nomadic peoples with the livestock that moved and met each other on migration trails and sold and traded and bartered animals back and forth. And so there seems to be some real regional variation in these dogs, but I view them as more as land races than breeds. And I think it's what is really important is that we strive for good performance and conformation and everything in these dogs. So again, these are more Spanish Mastiffs. These dogs have been very effective, especially with wolves in Spain. But sometimes the number of dogs that they have to have is pretty substantial. What we met one livestock producer in Spain that he had a pack of 8 wolves that were wearing radio collars, and he had 11 Spanish Mastiffs with 1,000 head of sheep. And 11 Spanish Mastiffs, that's a lot of feed, let me tell you that. That's a lot of dog food. So but the dogs also did a great job on protecting his sheep. So this is the Karakachan from Bulgaria. This is actually a kind of a little bit of a smaller livestock guardian dog breed, but we were really impressed with these dogs mainly because of their athletic ability, and they're used in a really high density area for brown bears, European brown bears. And they did a fantastic job. And they come in various colors, but again, these are very very athletic dogs. The Turkish Kangal, these are some of the dogs that we saw when we were in Turkey. Some of them are really large, but we really like these dogs. They can stand up to any predator. And in Turkey, they really do have they have wolves, jackals, leopards, and wild boars. Are some of the things that they protect their animals from. So, and when we visited Turkey, going all across the country and seeing their livestock guard dogs in use all over the place, we found that there is no tolerance for human aggressive livestock guard dogs in most of the rural areas of Turkey. They leave even stray livestock guard dogs out around villages, in towns and things like that, and people will take care of them because they view that these guard dogs have a purpose and that they are filling the candid niche. And so if they have the livestock guard dog on the landscape, then the wolves cannot be in that same landscape. So I really like the philosophy that they had throughout Turkey. In all the countries that we visited, we were cautioned that the dogs must come from real working livestock guard dog lineages, not just from kennels that were breeding guard dogs. The dogs have to have heart, desire, and drive. And how guard dogs interact with the public depends both on the genetic selection and the process of training and acclimating them on your operation. So, before we get into questions, I just wanted to go over a few more things. I really believe that mixed packs are best, using that mix of sex, age, and breed. We actually, I know that the breed issue can be somewhat controversial, but my actual favorite dogs are actually crossbred livestock guard dogs. We've had purebred Ovcharka and purebred Akbash, and my favorite dogs are the crosses between the two. And I think that getting those animals off to a good start with a strong bonding program early in life really sets them up for being well bonded adults. And it's funny because different guard dogs and different livestock will have various personal space, and some sheep will actually seek out their favorite guard dogs that they want to go up to them and have their noses licked and everything. Others are more standoffish, and it's really fun to watch the relationships between individual guard dogs and the individual animals that they guard. And I tell you what, when it comes to lambing, these dogs prove their value time and time again. Usually it's the guard dogs that let me know that a ewe is about to go into labor. The dogs almost always find a ewe about to start labor before I do. Sometimes I'm lucky and I will find a ewe that has started labor that I can then go grab a dog and drop the dog off. But most of the time the dogs are onto it way before I know. One of the really nice things about livestock guard dogs is they help to keep your flock or herd calm. They have a calming influence on them, and they actually will help that calming influence, the relaxing part, helps in terms of making better utilization of your pastures. And if you're unsure of whether you want to take the plunge into having a livestock guard dog, you can consider getting a guard dog pup to raise as a farmstead dog. And if you have kids on your ranch, it's a good idea, I think, to have a big guardian around. If you don't like dogs, then don't get a livestock guard dog because they will absolutely drive you insane. But guard dogs come in various colors, various hair types, whether they're slick hair or long hair. If you're a dog person, I think having raising a pup on your outfit will help you to understand the potential of what a livestock guard dog can do on your operation, because the dogs are smart and they figure things out. And besides, I'm just showing you a couple of cute photos. They are pretty darn entertaining. So we use the livestock guard dogs with burros that we have adopted from the BLM, from the Wild Horse and Burro program. And, once we got through the socialization process so that they weren't trying to kill each other, and they realized they were on the same team, they actually worked really well. together. And yeah, they're highly entertaining beings. And the way that the dogs help to take care and really seem to care for their animals is pretty extraordinary. And sometimes you can have issues with them, with guard dogs wanting to chase wild animals, especially ungulates. But we actually there's a few tricks that you can use for that. We actually put a chain on the collars of our guard dogs during the migration season for mule deer here, because we get so many mule deer going through here that we have a couple of young dogs that get a little too excited about it. There's too much activity. And so those chains help to slow the dogs down, and they just have to wear them for a couple of weeks, and that seems to calm them down. But our dogs get so used to the animals that we let them know that, that they're allowed to be here, that it's just not a big deal. So the bottom line is, if guard dogs weren't effective, they wouldn't be used over such a large part of the world for so long, thousands of years. And if they weren't pleasant to live in association with, we wouldn't do it. No livestock producer would do it, but they are. So, and with that, I'm going to stop the share. Okay.
Well, thank you, Kat. That was super informative. Those were some great pictures too.
Mm,
A lot of that was something I've always been interested in, but not really known a whole lot about the actual process. So I really appreciate that.
you bet.
Um, so we have a couple questions in the chat, if you don't mind me going through those with you.
Okay.
So the first one is, how do you enforce or teach the dogs to go to the sheep?
Well, we always start them with the sheep, and then once they go away, we chase them back, and it doesn't matter, we'll throw a bucket at them or anything and start to go to the sheep, go to the sheep. And then once they're back with the sheep, then go in and praise them, tell them they're with the sheep, give them a treat while they're with the sheep, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. We had so the other question was, do you have any good estimate of the reduction in predation due to good livestock guard dogs? A good livestock guard dog program like yours? For instance, Dr. Scasta estimated the decrease with guard burros was about 50% over the 2 years with that study.
Um, you know, I have read various studies that talk about that with livestock guard dogs, and I can't tell you um what our decrease would be. Honestly, I cannot imagine, without livestock guardian dogs, I can't imagine that we would even be in business now.
Right.
Our predator load is just too heavy here. We have mountain lions, wolves, coyotes, black bears, grizzly bears, and it's just uh, a depredation event for us is it's rather uncommon. We have a few animals killed every year. We have about one major wreck with a pack of wolves about every 4 years, and we usually end up with dead dogs and dead sheep and dead everything when that happens. But I cannot imagine that we could afford to be in this in business without these dogs. So it's really, the number would be really high for us for their effectiveness.
Okay. Do you have any estimate on the percentage of Western range flocks that use guard dogs? And what are the main barriers to wool growers making more use of them, if any?
So I just recently read it's up over 65% or something like that, for Western sheep producers are using livestock guard dogs. Um I think a couple of possible barriers is it's according to where you are as to as to whether livestock guard dogs are actually a viable option for you, because it might be a viable option while you're on public land for part of the year. But if you're going back down and taking those sheep into an area where there's a large human population around, that's not really a good scenario for having livestock guardian dogs. And honestly, I think that it's important to realize that different ranches have different resources that are available to them. And some of us, I think, are naturally dog people, or, and some of us are not. And so I would not expect someone that is not comfortable with dogs to have livestock guardian dogs. And I do know that when the US government started a program with guard dogs back in the 1970s, some of those dogs didn't work out very well. And some producers and ranches tried to use those dogs, and those dogs were not really raised real well with what we would consider best practices now. And they ended up having to be destroyed. And that was really tough for a lot of those ranchers. And so I think some of those ranches, when that didn't work out well the first time, it was pretty difficult to try to get them to come back in and try it again. And then the other thing is, I think it's also important to realize that for public lands ranchers, that you have recreational use around you at all times where you have livestock guard dogs on public lands. And there is a liability issue associated with using these dogs. We have a rider on our ranch insurance that covers the livestock guard dogs. So there are things that you can do, but we have such a society that lawsuits now. I think that the threat of a lawsuit is a substantial concern for a lot of producers. Sure. And so these are I think that a lot of producers are using livestock guard dogs, but they are not they're not the silver bullet thing for all producers, and there are other things that producers can do.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked, what would your recommended ratio be for a dog to head of sheep or cattle? And then secondly, you mentioned the importance of lineage. How would you recommend folks find a good livestock guardian dog?
Okay, I'm going to tackle that second one first. I think that the most important thing is when you're trying to get a livestock guardian dog or looking for a replacement livestock guardian dog, look for other producers that have scenarios that are similar to yours. If you if you are a public lands rancher that is running sheep with a high recreational use, look for other producers that are doing the same kind of thing, that are using livestock guardian dogs. And that would be a good source for where you could get livestock guardian dogs. Just get it from someone else that is doing the same thing. I know that I don't know. There seems to be a thing of there are a lot of livestock guard dog breeders, kennels that are selling livestock guardian dogs, and some of those may work for you and some of them may not. And that's why I just I think livestock producers are in the reproduction business. We're an animal husbandry business, and that's why I advise people to go to other livestock producers. And, and it's pretty fun to get to go to other producers' outfits and see what they're doing and see their dogs working. And then you'll know if that is the animals that you would like to go with. As for the ratio, man, I cannot tell you the ratio because it's, like I said, in the wintertime, we have too many dogs. In the summertime, it's not enough. It really is, according to what your predator challenge is. You can have one livestock guardian dog if you've got a small flock of sheep on on a farm, and that may be all that you need. Um, you know, I think you start with one, and then you see what you need. If the dog is getting run ragged, or is getting older and slowing down, then that may indicate that it's time to to bring in another dog. Um, so I just think that it varies so much that you can't do a formula for a
Yeah.
ratio.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. The next person asks, how does Wyoming protect guarded dogs and not have them fall under dog at large status or statutes?
Um, Wyoming has a specific statute that exempts the working livestock guardian dogs from the dog at large statute. It's
Okay.
written into state statute, but that doesn't mean that the guard dog can just be randomly roaming. It's supposed to be in the process of guarding.
Right.
So, but
Okay.
yeah, that's in statute. And I guess
That's
that's
good.
another thing, since someone brought this up. I think it's important, if you can, to try to work with your neighbors, your land management agencies, and your county sheriff's office, to let them know that you have livestock guardian dogs and what the situation is. We have grazed around a couple of rural subdivisions in previous years, and I did up a flyer with pictures of our dogs with my cell phone number and everything on it, and then took those to everybody in that rural subdivision and said, here's the deal with these dogs. Please don't feed them. They're doing their job. And if you have any questions or have any problems, this is my cell phone number. Call me right away. And so educating the public as to what the purpose of the dogs, and your responsibility for the dogs, and that you care about the dogs, I think is really important. And helps to alleviate some of the potential problems from people just not understanding what guard dogs do.
Okay. Great. And then our next person asked, do you have any estimate on how much a livestock guardian dog costs on an annual basis for
You
upkeep?
know, so we figured it, I think it was 4 years ago, we figured it was about $600 a dog per year. And our dog food costs have gone up since then. Everything has gone up since then. Um, but so I'm not sure how much more um that would be. That includes veterinary stuff in that as well. I mean, it's not just dog food, but yeah.
Somewhere around six then.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we have another question that is there availability of livestock guard dogs throughout all wolf states? Are there bottlenecks in supply? Says, I have heard that some breeders close their businesses, etc. Are livestock guard dogs provided by agencies today better than what you described historically?
Um, I don't know. I can't answer the question about whether the dogs are better from an agency. I very much appreciate agencies that are trying to get livestock guard dogs out on the ground with producers. Um, Unfortunately, though, I think that there is a reality involved in that some people are really breeding guard dogs just like any other species. They're breeding a heck of a lot of the dogs to get them out there on the landscape. They are not necessarily the best dogs, because if you look at how these dogs are raised in other countries throughout time, they don't keep every pup as a livestock guard dog. They're usually, it's 2 or 3 pups per litter are what make it as livestock guardian dogs. And so I think that you have to realize that there is going to be some level of not every pup in a litter is going to be a successful guard dog. Um, there is you still have a responsibility to those dogs. But, to not have them out on the landscape as a working livestock guardian dog, if they're not actually working for you as a livestock guardian dog, and to get them placed with someone into a home or some other scenario. And I am really disappointed in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention came up with a rabies rule that not allow us to import dogs that are less than 6 months of age. And that went into effect last year. And so that means that we cannot bring livestock guard dog pups from their original countries. That they have to be at least 6 months old. But by that time, you've lost that bonding period and with those dogs. So in a way, you've lost a generation of dogs even to bring those dogs in. So I do think that we do have a bit of a bottleneck. I think that I think we need some more genetics in the United States for various breeds.
Great. Our last question we have typed in is generally how much is an insurance rider for a livestock guard dog?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay.
It's not terribly expensive though, I can tell you that. And then there is a livestock guard dog insurance program that has been offered to the American Sheep Industry Association. I believe that is still in place, and if anyone wants more information about that, I can certainly try to follow that up. But I think if you have ranch insurance, whether it's Farm Bureau, Farmers Union, most of these insurance outfits can do a rider for livestock guardian dogs that is pretty inexpensive. But I can tell you that one thing that we do with our livestock guard dogs that makes this easier is that we do document things with our livestock guardian dogs. We document their care. We keep good health records, veterinary records. We take pictures of them so that there's a good record of how they behave, things like that. So then I think it helps that I write books. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had one more question myself, if you don't mind. I guess if you have a herd of sheep that has been kind of overly harassed by canines, coyotes and wolves, but you did not have livestock guard dogs in place at the time and decide to bring them in, I'd imagine those sheep are going to be really hesitant to be around the guard dogs. Have you ever dealt with that or heard of that from anybody else?
You bet. And that has been pretty difficult. Actually, one of the problems that we had is that we brought in some ovcharkas from Tajikistan that I didn't care what color they were, but they were black. But then we had one of our flocks got hit by a pack of black wolves.
Oh.
And we ended up having to go out of the black guard dog business. And I have a friend who is actually a wolf biologist in Spain that talked to us about a similar scenario that they actually had to change guard dogs out with a flock in Spain because they needed dogs that weren't the same color as the wolves because of the same stress response. But one thing that we've learned from producers everywhere on is that there is a process for bringing in new animals. In Africa, it's pretty amazing that they will bring in a new calf or a sheep or a dog, and they will take dirt from the earth, from the pen or a corral for the animals, and they will rub that dirt all over the top of the new animal so that the new animal starts smelling like the landscape in which it will then reside in. And that actually helps the socialization process with other members of the flock or herd, as well as the livestock guardian dogs. We've kind of done a similar thing where we will put a livestock guardian dog or a sheep or whatever it is, a new animal, into a pen where all the other animals can see and walk around it, and leave the new animal in there for a few weeks so the animals can really start looking at them and realizing that, okay, there's nothing to be stressed out about, and have the animals start smelling like the landscape that it's going to be in. And so we do kind of a slow acclimation process there. But it can be a slow process involving a guard dog with sheep that have already been harassed by dogs. But I do think that it is important. I like to think that the color of animals doesn't matter, but in some cases it really does.
Okay.
And that was even difficult for us. Even once we quit using the big black livestock guardian dogs, we still have the little herding dogs that are black and white, and it took a long time for those for the sheep to calm back down and to be comfortable with those herding dogs again. So
Okay.
yeah.
Just a matter of time and acclimation then. That makes
Yeah.
sense. All right. I think we're about good to wrap up here. Kat, if you don't mind, again, I dropped the link to your website in the chat so people can access your book titles and purchase anything that they'd like. Is there anywhere else people could go to find out more about your work or the work of others on this subject that you'd recommend?
Um, No, I post about guard dogs every once in a while on my Facebook page, but so I'm so close to finishing my next adult nonfiction book, and it's actually on livestock guardian dogs and the relationship with the wolves in our area over time. And so I will hopefully um within a year here, I'll have another guard dog book out there. So yeah,
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
we'll definitely keep people up to date on that and excited
great.
for those to come out.
You bet.
All right. Well, thank you, Kat. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today. And I think I know I personally learned a whole lot about that whole process of guard dogs, and I'm sure others have too. Is there anything else you'd like to close out with?
No, I just want to thank everybody for getting on here tonight. I really appreciate your interest in this topic. So, and I wish you all well. And if I can help in any way, let me know. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Kat. I appreciate it. Well, thank you everybody for attending tonight. We really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to that with us. Hopefully everybody gained as much as I did through that talk. Remember, we will be back on here next Tuesday, same time, same link. And this time we'll hear about state and county resources and the economic impacts of predation on sheep herds. So again, fill out our evaluation if you don't mind, and we look forward to seeing everybody again next week. Thank you and good night.